the Chiefs released playoff hero MVS, and in doing so, they saved around 12 million smackaroos for the squad. Obviously, MVS up and down career as far as, didn't really play up to the potential of his contract during the regular season. Came alive last year, AFC Championship game against Cincinnati when we were depleted in the receiver room. Came alive, made some spectacular catches. Came alive in this year's playoffs, made some, great plays for us. Got rid of the whole dropsies thing that he had during the regular season. But he came out, did his thing during this playoffs, and good way to go, planting the flag at the Raiders Stadium after winning that Super Bowl. But JD, when we think about MVS, obviously we're getting $12 million back, so that's going to go to retaining some of the guys we want to keep on the defense, maybe splurging on some receivers. But JD, what do you make of this move, which we saw coming? I think most people saw this happening. What do you make of this move, and what, looking back on MVS's legacy, what we remember about MVS's legacy in Kansas City?
Well, hats off to MVS. Appreciate everything that he's done here with the Chiefs, getting 2 Super Bowls while coming here, helping with that. Just, being able to give us something, right? A contribution. And without his contribution, we don't win 2 Super Bowls without it. We just don't. And the thing is, that needed to be commended. It needs to be talked about and spoken on about what he was able to do while he was here with the Chiefs. Now, obviously, the conversation goes to, with what he was able to do the past 2 years, does that validate or warrant the type of money that he was making, right? And I think that you really can't make a case about that being the point. I don't think he made enough of an impact as far as catches and what they were thinking he was going to be able to do, being a number 1 wide receiver, stretching the defense, probably projected for him to get maybe 60 to 70 balls a year, and he didn't get anywhere close to that. And so when I'm looking at his stats, and you look at stats, and look, I'm the first one to tell you. I've said this, and I say this with me. Stats don't necessarily tell the whole story, and they don't, okay? I'm not going to cut his legs off from underneath him, but when you bring somebody in, and the expectation is for him to catch a lot of balls, and he doesn't, and it performs in that, being the most significant thing that we brought him in to do, I think it's what you got to judge him on, right? Now, all the other contribution that he did a tremendous job blocking for guys anytime guys got the football. He did a hell of a job. Okay, let me say that one more time. MVS did a hell of a job blocking for guys when they got the ball. He was very selfless like that, where, hey, maybe if I don't have the ball in my hands, at least I can go out here and do something, block for the guys, maybe get another touchdown. I think he understood that part of it, that role. But I know he wished that he had maybe a bigger role in the offense. At least he wished he probably caught a lot more balls than what he did. And the thing is, it's going to be the ups and downs, the controversy, how well at the very beginning of the season, drops, the controversy of how he responded to it. But all of that goes into trying to measure what this guy is worth to you as a team. And it's all business in the NFL. Look, this is a performance-based business. It always has been, and it always will be. That is not going to change. And so for the Chiefs, they felt like, as far as like the performance he was getting out there on the field, just wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough for them to retain him here with the Chiefs. And I'm fine with that. I think everybody's seen that. I think he understood that as well, that he might be able to go and make a payday somewhere else. But we're looking for guys to come in and have a full production for an entire year. And that belongs to consistency. We're looking for consistency from guys. That's what it is. I mean, when you're talking about wide receivers, catching the football, being consistent while you're doing it, running the right routes, doing the right things, that's what it takes. And I think, maybe the lack of production didn't really warrant keeping him here. So,
I think that's what's going to come down to as far as, what we want out of a person, and the consistency. And we saw a little bit more of that consistency when it came to the end of the season, in the playoffs specifically, We saw that, but at that $12 million number, and we think that we can either find a bona fide number one. That could be anybody. I don't know if we are going to go get a guy, or we're going to go through the draft. But like the $12 million, man, it's just it's a lot of money, especially when we are trying to. I see a G pick in the chat, Chris Jones. I mean that at the end of the day, we're trying to like rob Peter to pay Paul. Yeah, and this is where it's going to happen. We had to make these decisions, and quite frankly, I don't think it was that hard of a decision. Yeah, his legacy as far as the Super Bowls, being on these teams, having pivotal plays in the playoffs, and we wouldn't have gotten them without MVS. But at the end of the day, that contract didn't warrant his statistics didn't warrant what he was getting paid. And I know you say stats will tell the whole story, but at the end of the day, it's a production-based business. $12 million. So I mean, you're not doing enough to get that $12 million. And now we're going to apply that to a Chris Jones type of guy, and then who else we're going to get out after that. So,
yeah. And look, the thing is, this is what happens. It happens in the NFL all the time. When they bring guys in and you don't really hit your mark what they expected you to do, then, hey, man, it's a business. And they got to send you a package. Sorry. Hey, appreciate it. But, as far as like what we thought you were going to be able to do, you didn't. And, it was, I think, an amicable decision. The Chiefs was like, hey, man, we appreciate everything about it, right? But you can't take from a small sample size what a guy does, maybe 1 or 2 games, and like, hey, man, yeah, that warrants the entire season. Like, that's why we should keep you here.
I know.
Nobody believes that. No, I don't think anybody believes that. So,
well, because if you think about this, like, let's say we won a Super Bowl team. This is what, like, I think some people are pissed off. I saw in the comments. I like to look at the threads when Jeremy Fowler reports MVS is gone. Looking at the comments, oh man, we're breaking up the squad. Can't be doing this bad juju, bad mojo. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, okay, let's say we won a Super Bowl team. Let's say we were like a Panthers or a team that ended week 18. Season was over week 18. MVS is gone as a goner. But those three extra weeks. It's like, okay, that doesn't warrant to bring him back again at a $12 million number. But like any other team, the season ends week 18. What you gave me during those 18 weeks, that's what you gave me. That was it. And those stats don't warrant the money that you're gonna the $12 million. But then obviously he stepped up in the playoffs. He made $12 million type of plays in the playoffs, but that doesn't warrant a whole season's check for that.
Well, we could argue on the other side of it. Like, look, we're not breaking up the band. Shoot, having them here made it harder to get to the playoffs to win a Super Bowl. Right? Yeah. You could say that. Like, well, shoot, maybe the level of difficulty was harder because he was not performing. And then we had to figure it out. So now what it ended up doing is you might have taken a couple of years off of Patrick Mahomes or maybe Travis Kelce, trying to cover for a guy who might not be producing, right? Or wide receiver. So now that puts more pressure on these guys to do more, right? They get paid the big bucks. I get it. But, we're paying you big bucks too. And so if we're sitting there paying you big bucks to do a particular job and you're not getting the job done, hey man, look, we need to find somebody else that's going to take that load off these guys and make it easier, right? We're not trying to wear down Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, by saying, hey, let's keep trying to drag on with guys that may be holding us back or not doing so well, not performing like they should. Nobody's going to do that. No team's going to do that. And like I said before in my tweet, this is not a popularity contest. I like MVS. I think MVS is a cool guy, okay? And I think he's guys like in the locker room. But it's all about field-based. What are you performing? What are you doing, right? So that's the way it works. Now, if your job, like, okay, let's say for me, where I was more, regulated to like block in and all those different things, caught a few balls here and there, but definitely my worth was, if you need somebody to block defensive end and linebackers and stuff like that, I was like that extra lineman who could catch footballs, could do all those different things. I had versatility. And so, yeah, I'm looking like, shoot, what am I bringing to the table? I think that's what it is. So you got to ask that question. The team is asking you, is he worth the money? You cannot tell me $12 million was worth what he caught. Let me how many catches?
Gosh, was like 35? 21?
It can't be right.
Oh man, no, you might be right. To be quite honest with you,
daggone.
I think he almost had more catches in the playoffs than he had in the regular season.
Yeah, the 42 the year before. Yeah, he just 12. That don't seem $12 million, man. I don't even know if it seems half of that. You know, you get a guy, man, to come in, shoot, you want him to do at least that for half the money, quarter of it, $12 million, $3 million. Shoot, you ought to catch 20-something balls. It's good money.
I will say this, based on what we saw this year with Hardman, I hope to God this doesn't happen next year where we need to make a trade at the deadline to bring in someone to give some juice to the receiver room. I hope that doesn't happen next year. But what we saw with the Hardman situation, and we're seeing more with him talking about the Jets, but you can never rule out the fact that we may make a trade during the midseason if he's signs a 1-year, $4 million deal somewhere. We make a trade midseason and bring MVS back. I mean, you can't rule it out anymore. We saw it with the Hardman this past year. So, I mean, yes, we released him, but that doesn't rule out a potential return in the future if that does happen.
Well, yeah, that will be later on in the future. That's what happened. They're going to make sure they get the people that they need. Like we first off, let's make sure that we get everything. How we going to do it? How we diagram, put everything up. Okay. Mm-hmm. How we constructing everything. We're going to make sure that happens. How we do it. My boy Stu was talking. They're down here talking about Mike Evans. We can't afford Mike Evans. Sorry, Stu. Listen, they keep saying Mike Evans is coming to the Chiefs. We ain't got no money for Mike Evans. We don't. Mm-hmm. We don't need Mike Evans right now.
He wants money, man. That was their whole during the season with their negotiations. He wants big time money, and it's not that they don't want to give him that. They just don't want to give him as much as he wants, and he already has a ring. So he's not going to take a dive to come to Kansas City. He's not going to say, "Oh, I'll play on a cheap for a year." You already have a ring. At this point, continue to get money. I mean, that's what it is. He's already got the ring.
Yeah. Wendy said, "Lord, if I can't get paid like that, catching footballs, yeah." A little bit more to it than just that, than just catching footballs. You're putting yourself life on the line. There's risk on doing that. So, but yeah, this is all about, business moves for who we need to sign, right? Chris Jones, the JariusSneed, all those guys, the priorities. That's what we were talking about. If we have something that $12 million can go to someone else that we can get cheaper, maybe produce a little bit more, right? You want to be able to stretch your dollar. That's what you want to be able to do. That's just a business decision. Nothing wrong with that. Hey, man, hats off to MVS, man. Seriously, man. I enjoyed every bit that he was out here through it. I'm glad he worked through all the problems that he was going through. And that showed me a lot of character for him through the adversity, just working through it and not giving up. Yeah. So I think that needs to be talked about as well. So I do like that, man. So hats off to him.
And good for the organization to, everyone saw this coming, right? We all saw this coming. And everyone, good for the organization to do this right now so he can begin the process of looking to find his next team, right? As opposed to waiting it out a few weeks, like, it was all inevitable. We knew this was going to come, but hats off to the organization for getting it done now. And kind of we're going, it seems like we're going to right away to go to bat to get some of these guys, bring them in. And this MVS thing was a step towards, doing some other things. But before we do get to some of the other things, JD, to sticking with the receivers, you got into a conversation on Twitter. You had a question that was asked to you, and I want to get into that a little bit regarding about receivers. So you got a question online yesterday from our guy Chris Burnett. So he said, question for Jason Dunn of Chief Concerns. Is the Chiefs wide receiver room really bad, or can Rice, Toney, and James be enough? I'm still not against Kadarius Toney. I thought they brought him back way too soon after his offseason surgery and literally with no training camp. KT never got totally in synchronology with the rest of the team in a down year for the offense. Had he not been called for lining off sides against the Bills and the winning TD countered his half dozen mistakes, wouldn't have been much easier for many to forgive. You had a whole thing about that. You responded back to that on Twitter yesterday, and a lot of people have been kind of chiming in on that thread there. So JD, walk you through that tweet.
So basically, got what I did. I had a long response to it, and I was saying that the problem with the wide receiver room is that we didn't really have anybody wide receiver room that put fear in any of the secondaries that we went against. It didn't. And so we were expecting MVS, KT, and those guys to be the number one, number two receiver. Okay. That's what we paid them for. That's why we brought KT in. And these guys have skill, ball skills. We understand that. Well, they just didn't produce this past year. And how it goes in the NFL is this is a what have you done for me lately league too. So it ain't just productionally. It's what have you done for me lately? And look, and teams can move on. Look, the NFL has never had a problem getting guys in to play. Never. They can go get wide receivers or tight ends or whoever they need to go get. So they don't have to stick with these guys. To them, if a guy's had a history of injuries and maybe drops and whatnot, guess what? There's hundreds of other guys out here who wants that job, who have that passion to get those things right. Now, they might not necessarily have the skill set, but some do. Some do, and some pass them up because you're taking a chance on this guy. So to me, that room has to shake up a little bit. And look, I like KT. I like KT. I like James. I like those guys, right? But we knew that it was a challenge all year because guys were getting hurt. I was a big supporter of bringing McCole Hardman in. I said McCole's going to come here and get a spark for us guys, right? I said that, Marcus, didn't I? I was like, look, McCole Hardman is the answer, I thought, to bring a spark to this wide receiver core that was struggling at the time, as beyond Rashee Rice, who was balling out of control, which nobody expected a first-round pick to do, especially when you have experienced guys that's already sitting in the room, like MVS and KT. They've already played the NFL. They know what it's all about. They know what it takes. So a rookie coming in, Rashee Rice, should be coming and filling in as a support role. But he comes in, he blows it out the water. Great for him, right? He gives a validity to that room. Now, if we're sitting over here, we're trying to wait for guys to get better and whatnot, then time's ticking. It is. Time is ticking. We don't have time to wait. But Cole came in. He ended up getting hurt. Set him back for a few. So all these guys was getting hurt, which isn't their fault. It happens in the NFL. These things do happen. But the Chiefs said to themselves, like, well, shoot, we got to get somebody who's durable, somebody who's consistent, somebody that we can definitely rely on, right? We got to have that confidence in these guys going to be able to get these things right. It's the same thing with Justin Ross. Justin Ross was somebody the Chiefs took a chance on, okay? I hated that he ended up getting into that whole situation last year because as much people don't want to say this, I'm going to say it. That puts a mark upon him. It's a business. And I'm telling you, the NFL don't have time to hold guys' hands. The only reason some guys get more opportunities and chances is because they have draft picks, okay? They got money invested into you. If they don't have a whole lot of money invested into you, they don't have to wait. Like I said, there's plenty of guys out here that can play, they could go get. So sometimes a project and those things that they have to work on, they might not have the patience for that. They just might not have it. But I do like KT. My thing is this. I think it's where we have to go. Without a doubt, we need to go get us a wide receiver that is capable, durable, consistent, and is going to catch 70, 80-plus balls a year. This is what I said. We need to get a guy like that we know for a fact is going to get that many balls a year, okay? Who's going to put fear in DBs. And I even said this, like, when a DB is going into the game, he's going to be looking up at the ceiling, not getting the wink of sleep, knowing he's got to go against that receiver tomorrow. That's what you need. You need somebody who's going to put fear in guys' hearts and DBs. Keep a defensive coordinator up at night, pointing him on the board saying, this guy right here is a dog. We need to do everything we need to do to stop him. We cannot let him get going. We have it in Travis Kelce, but he's a tight end. We're talking about on the outside. It's got to be more than just Travis Kelce right now. It has to be. Everybody wanted to say Travis Kelce slowing down and Taylor Swift on it. Well, shoot. If you put it on him where nobody's on the outside is getting any type of work like they should be, it is going to be harder on him. Then you do get the double teams, the triple teams on Travis Kelce like you see. They do beat him up a little bit more, and he starts feeling it. That's not fair to him. So we got to do everything in our power to get a receiver that we know is going to go in and catch 70, 80 balls a year, okay? Still got speed, run great routes, high point the football, can do everything, run every route that's on the route tree, okay? And then some, right? And then we got to go to get a guy in the draft. We need to go get a young receiver in the draft to complement Rashee Rice and that other receiver that we get, okay, the 70, 80 ball guy, okay? And I'm talking about an exciting guy. I'm talking about a no-miss guy. I'm not talking about a project that we think in 4th or 5th round. I'm talking about a guy that you know is going to come in. He's going to give you something right off the bat. It's got to be that, okay? Now, after that happens, after that, the blueprint, hey, where Kadarius Toney fits, or James, or Watson, or Ross, or whoever he is on Sky, hey, let them get in where they fit in. Now there's competition, okay? If you could beat those guys out, then you deserve to be on the team, okay? Mm-hmm. That's the way it works. Because sometimes it's like, hey, man, we just can't keep giving you this grace to say you're going to be this guy up here and this. No, you got to earn your spot. That's how it works in the NFL, okay? NFL, like it says, not for long. These things don't happen all the time. Guys don't get chances like that. That's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the business. That's how these things get down. We just got to understand that, man. So that was what I was saying. That's what I was talking about. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that's the direction we have to go. We have to make it easier on Patrick Mahomes. We have to make it easier on Travis Kelce. We have to make it easier on the offense. And so what happens is you get guys in here who already know how to play, and they got the production. They got the cachet behind them. They know what it means to be championship winners. So that's what I think.
Yeah, that's been our kind of our mantra since probably the Patriots game when Mahomes was pissed off after Kadarius, tipped the ball up in the air, and he was just you could just tell he was kind of maxed out as being pissed off on but no, our mantra, the whole thing was we were going to go into this offseason overcorrecting the wide receiver room. We were going to do what we did with the offensive line after the Tampa Bay Super Bowl, and that's what we're going to do. I mean, like you said, we're going to go get a veteran receiver, a guy like a Tyler Lockett if he's cut in Seattle, which they're saying he's going to be cut. So a guy like that. And then you also go to the draft. It's a very deep receiver draft. So maybe we can allot a second or third round pick, even maybe a late first to a receiver. And one guy I'm looking at, JD, we obviously will get into our college stuff as we get along here. And for those of you who are new to the show, we get into kind of a mock draft, kind of looking at the guys in the draft as we get closer to the draft. But Brendan Rice is a guy that I'm very interested in from USC, Jerry Rice's son. Also sweet to have two Rices on the squad too. But like the fact that Rice, I mean, he's a deep ball guy, 6'2". He's got a good frame. I think he'd be a phenomenal guy. And they say they have him right now. Obviously, we'll see what happens in the draft or in the combine. But they have him right now as a late second, early third kind of guy. So that is a second, third round kind of guy. That could be someone that we can maybe look at. There's plenty of guys in this draft, but I would love Brandon Rice on the squad. And you pair him with a veteran guy like a Tyler Lockett type of guy. I'm not saying him per se, but a guy like that. You bring him in, and that's a room of top 3 round receiver, a veteran guy, Rashee Rice, and you have guys like Nico Remigio. You got guys like Justin Ross, Sky Moore, Tony, Justin Watson. I mean, it's a pretty solid room. I mean, you're just adding 2 guys to that room, and like you said, you make the rest compete. And I think Remigio, who shined during the preseason last year, got hurt with the shoulder injury. But he's a guy that I think is going to take over the Richie James role, the punt return and the kick return, being that guy. And he was one of the best punt returners coming out of the draft last year, based on his yards, average yards per return in his punt returns. So that's a guy who I think is cheap. It would cover the Richie James and not having to bring back another guy. And again, cutting costs somewhere, to help out elsewhere.
Hey man, you get what you pay for sometimes, right? The question is you doable enough to make 17 games? That's a question, right? I mean, he got hurt. I mean, it goes into all the decisions.
It's true,
right? It goes into all the decisions. Hey, man, he looked great in preseason. Sure, bravo. I know tons of guys that look great in preseason. This is what I was talking about. People couldn't really understand, like when I know everybody made all hoopla about Justin Ross catching the football, breadbasket, and whatnot.
Damn right, baby.
Yeah, right? Everybody went crazy. And I was like, man, that was a good catch. You know what? When you play in the NFL, okay, and like I have over the years, and you talk to guys that's been in the NFL for a number of years, you see guys make catches like that. That's what you're supposed to do. That you in here with the big dogs now. This is the big boys now. Like guys catch balls with one hand, right? Somebody said, well, how come nobody showed it in the game? Well, shoot, you don't know what's going on in practice. Shoot, it's probably the guys doing it every day. Got to work on one-hand catches. I can't just take one catch and be like, oh my gosh, he's got to be the guy. You know what? I could go find hundreds of guys catching like that. I'm telling you. Look, you don't believe me? You can ask any of my boys that play wide receiver, tight ends. You got to ask anybody that. DBs will tell you they catch balls like that, one-handed. This is the elite of the elite. That people don't understand. I get like, hey, maybe you only see things and maybe they don't do it in games. I get that, right? In games, like, hey, man, you can catch with two hands, secure it. Do it better, right? He went out there, you know, and you don't have that much pressure in practice. You know, you can do the one hand and do all those things. Perfect. Travis Kelce throwing the ball over, you know, catching and throwing, you know, making a creative throw to Kadarius Toney. Mind blowing. That don't happen. You don't get to do things like that in the game. But this is elite. This is how guys, when you start getting to that IQ and doing things, this is how things happen. So Justin Rowe, is a very talented receiver. He's a very talented receiver. If we retain him and hold on to him, I want him to have a shot. I want him to have a chance. Is he well? Medically, is he fine? That's what they're looking and making sure, hey, man, we got to make sure you're going to be okay through the entire season, right? You had the hiccup. We got to make sure you're okay during the entire season. And if they're not, they're going to find other guys.
You mean well as in like, you know, in his head, like, you know, he's like medically in that respect, right?
Medically, physically. I'm talking about physically, is he well? Like, you know, because he had the whole degenerative disc, like all those different things. Like, you still have to
but we cleared him, but that also he wasn't getting that many reps, and that's where it comes in. Like, are they comfortable?
Hey, we cleared him. Other teams may not.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing about it, right? You could be the big dog eating at Clemson, and guess what? You may be Swiss cheese somewhere else. Hey, man, this is how it works. When you go to the NFL, I'm talking about this, the elite of the elite. And sometimes it's guys that don't get those shots who show you how good they are, right?
Yeah.
When you go to, let's say, like I'll give you a name that I kept talking about last year that we should have got in the draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dobbs up there at Green Bay. Dobbs played at Nevada, right? Who's going to be watching Nevada play? Okay? You watch this guy's tape, you can see how good he is. You know what I mean? So he had to go to Clemson. He went to Nevada, but this sucker can still ball. He's balling. So I think when you go into these decisions, especially business-wise, there's a lot of people that come into that room and got to stand on the table for you, man. I'm telling you, somebody's got to stand on the table for you, right? Somebody's got to get up there and say, hey, look, Justin Ross is the guy that could get it done, blah, blah, blah. And everybody's got to listen to that. Everybody's got to feel that. And everybody's got to buy into that, okay? So I know Kadarius Toney, you know, he's rubbed guys wrong way. And I don't even know, like, this whole deal with what this conversation came out, what he said. I don't know anything about it. I don't know. Nobody knows the truth of that, right? But
he's tried to deny it and say it's more like, you know, someone took pieces of a conversation, but many other people have come out and said that it's legitimate. It's a legitimate thing. And, you know, I think Michael Robinson asked him a question about it. He kind of like laughed about it at the Super Bowl. So like, yeah. And a healthy scratch of the Super Bowl too, man. And that's just like the whole thing's so murky and weird. I mean, obviously we don't know the behind the scenes stuff to it, but like, yeah, it's definitely uncomfortable. Like we can at least agree on that. It's been an uncomfortable thing.
It's been an uncomfortable thing, man.
Yeah.
So Brendan Rice. So I'll ask you, Brendan Rice, is he ready to come play right now? If day one, is he ready to come out there and run routes and catch footballs for us day one?
Oh yeah, kid's a stud.
I've only seen highlights of it, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously he come from good stock with his dad. You know, he come from a great family. I mean, Jerry's gonna be all over him. So I know he has that pressure. Like, look, I'm gonna do well. I'm gonna get well. And I think he's a good kid. He'd be great on the team. But we do need to have that guy. I'm telling you, day one coming in, no question, day one ready to play. Same thing, the guy we bring in, 780 balls, day one ready.
Okay? And talk about this. I'm seeing too much from our fan base saying, oh, we don't need to go get a veteran, just going to draft guys. Because I think people forget and lose sight of the veteran presence in the locker room. Now that MVS is gone, with the elder statesman in that room is Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore currently. Come on. I mean, like, that's ridiculous. So like, and obviously most people who, understand no ball know that you need a veteran in the room, especially a guy who's going to take the weight off Rashee Rice, who can maybe help him be more of a professional in the league, and also taking the weight off his shoulders and Kelsey's shoulders, as you mentioned. But talk about the veteran presence of it, because I think people think, oh, we're just going to draft a receiver in the first round and then maybe draft one in the fourth round. We'll be set at receiver. No, we're not going to be set at receiver. No, we're not.
Listen, you had to have somebody who's had experience how to deal with things, deal with adversity, who's been on a team before, to tell guys how to be professional, how to move around these circles, how to carry yourself on the field and off the field, in the media, somebody who's been there before, a wily vet that can come in and help coach these guys up. Because sometimes players can speak other players' languages to help them understand certain things. Like, hey, man, think about it like this, right? If I'm running this route, thinking of maybe they was in a whole different system. Thinking of this route like this, like that system, what it did. Now you can think about it a little bit better. And so having experience, man, it's hard to pay for something like that. Yeah, I mean, that's invaluable. It's imperative to have a guy who knows what he's doing, to teach these guys, to get them right, get them straight. And to be honest with you, I think it was part of the problem last year, is you had such a young team, okay, or young group, and you had a young wide receiver coach coming in who already knows how to coach. I mean, his dad, has been coaching, who's trying to get them on the same page about what they need to do. But maybe they didn't want to listen to that early on, right? Maybe they feel like, oh, well, he's a new guy coming in, and the guys wanted to do their thing, okay? This is speculation, all right? I'm just saying. But it seems like when you started hearing guys toward the end of, what week was it, 9 or 10, when Justin Watson saying, hey, we started to come in early?
It was after the Packers game, I believe.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, man, a vet, you would have had him coming in early at week 1. Week 2, like, hey, man, we got to get this together. It's on us and nobody else. And everybody's got to understand that. That's what a vet would do. He would make sure guys are doing that. He would hold them accountable. Not saying guys weren't doing it in the room, but it just seemed like everything was just kind of, laissez-faire a little bit. You know what I mean? Kind of lackadaisical. And it was just, when you hear guys in the media, maybe how they responded didn't bode well for them, right? It was like, oh, man, you understand what's going on? Like, you just can't just, hey, I get it. Drops happen, right? And you're supposed to move on to the next play. Mm-hmm. But there's a sense of responsibility there, right? That you should have, an accountability, that you put it on yourself. Like, we're going to get this done, putting more work and effort into. That's what people wanted to hear. They wanted to hear what guys were doing to get better. Not just say, we're going to work on things in practice. Well, what do you mean work on things in practice? What does that entail? What does that mean when I'm sitting there telling them? A veteran will let you know exactly what that is, okay? He will tell you how many reps he needs to take. What little I can't even think of it now.
Intricacies,
field groups, or whatever things you're doing, to get better. Yeah. That's what a vet is going to do, and he knows how to handle the media because he's been there before. He can come in, he can deflect a little bit, right? But he knows how to handle himself and how to talk to reporters. All of that is important, man. All of that important to having a vet, man. Seriously, you got to have a guy like that.
Yep. So when if Seattle parts ways with Tyler Lockett, come home, baby. Come home.
And Tyler's a good man. He's a good man of character. He teach those young guys a whole lot.
For sure.
A whole lot.
And get him a ring too. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.